No one ever expects the truth to come from a child, especially not the kind of truth that quietly changes everything. On that Tuesday morning, the house felt normal, coffee cooling on the counter, shoes by the door, the quiet hum of a life that looked steady from the outside. She had learned to trust those moments. Normal had become her reward for surviving the past. Her name was Claire. She was in her late 30s, remarried, and doing her best to build something gentle after a life that had once been loud with disappointment. Her husband, Daniel, had a son from his first marriage. Evan was 13 years old, tall for his age, soft-spoken, always watching more than he said. Claire never tried to replace Evan's mother. She knew that wasn't her place. Instead, she focused on being present, a steady ride to school, warm dinners, a listening ear when he wanted one. Over time, Evan had begun to trust her, not loudly, not all at once, just in the quiet ways that mattered. That morning, Daniel had already left for work. The house belonged to Claire and Evan. They sat at the kitchen table together. The air smelled like toast in early autumn. Evan picked at his breakfast. He wasn't eating much. Claire noticed but didn't push. Teenagers came with moods. She had learned that patience opened more doors than pressure. "You okay?" she asked gently. Evan nodded too quickly. "Yeah." But his voice didn't match the answer. Claire took a sip of coffee. She waited.
Silence had become one of her strengths. It invited people to fill it when they were ready. Evan stared at the table, then at the window, then finally at her. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. Something in his tone made her chest tighten. Not fear, recognition. "Of course," she said. Her voice stayed calm, even though her instincts were already waking up. Evan swallowed. His hands were clenched in his lap. "You can't tell my dad," he said quickly. "Not yet." Claire hesitated for a breath. She chose her words carefully. "I won't promise that," she said softly, "but I promise I'll listen." Evan nodded. He seemed to accept that answer. What he didn't seem ready for was what came next. "I think," he began, then stopped. Claire leaned back slightly, giving him space. "No rush." He took a deep breath. "I think everyone is lying to him," Evan said. The words landed quietly, but they echoed. Claire felt a subtle shift inside herself. Not panic, awareness. "Who is everyone?" she asked. Evan's eyes flicked toward the hallway, as if someone might be listening. "My mom," he said, "and my aunt, and maybe even Dad." Claire didn't interrupt. She didn't react. She had learned that children told the truth best when adults didn't rush to correct them. "What do you think they're lying about?" she asked. Evan's jaw tightened. "About why my parents really split up," he said. Claire's heart beat a little faster. Daniel had told her the story years ago. There had been distance, growing apart. Nothing dramatic. Clean, simple. But the way Evan spoke now didn't match that version. "I hear things," Evan continued, "when they think I'm asleep, or when they don't realize I'm home." Claire nodded slowly. "And it doesn't add up," he said. "People don't whisper about nothing." That was true. Claire felt the weight of the moment settle in. This wasn't teenage curiosity. This was a child trying to make sense of a broken narrative. "What do you think really happened?" she asked gently. Evan hesitated. Then his voice dropped. "I think my dad took the blame for something that wasn't his fault," he said, "and I think he did it to protect someone else." Claire's fingers tightened around her mug. "Why would he do that?" she asked. Evan looked up at her. His eyes were clearer than she expected. "Because that's what he always does," Evan said. "He keeps things quiet so other people don't have to feel bad." Claire felt a sharp ache behind her ribs. Daniel was kind, too kind sometimes. "So why are you telling me now?" she asked. Evan shrugged. But his voice didn't. "Because you're not part of the old story," he said, "and because you listen." The room felt smaller, not suffocating, just focused. Claire nodded. "I think something's going to happen," Evan added, "soon." Her stomach tightened. "What makes you think that?" Evan hesitated again, then spoke words that made her skin prickle.
But when Daniel came home that evening, she noted something she hadn't before: a tightness around his eyes, a carefulness in his smile. "How was your day?" she asked. "Fine," he said. "Too quick, too smooth." They moved through dinner like practice dancers, talking about schedules, about weather, about nothing that mattered. Evan barely spoke. He ate quietly, eyes down, listening more than participating. Claire watched the two of them together, a father and son bound by affection and by something unspoken. After dinner, Daniel retreated to the garage. Evan disappeared into his room. Claire stood alone at the sink. The hum of the house felt louder than usual. She dried her hands slowly, then made a decision she hadn't planned to make. She knocked on Evan's door. "Come in," his voice called. His room was neat in a way that felt intentional, like order helped him think. Claire sat on the edge of his desk chair. She didn't crowd him. "I've been thinking about what you said this morning," she began. Evan nodded. He didn't look surprised. "I want you to know something," she said. "I won't jump to conclusions, but I won't ignore you either." He finally met her eyes. "That's all I wanted," he said. They sat in silence for a moment. "Has anything changed recently?" Claire asked. "At your mom's place?" Evan hesitated. "My aunt's been around more," he said. "She talks like she knows things she shouldn't." "What kind of things?" "About money," he said. "And about timing." Claire frowned slightly. "Timing of what?" Evan shrugged. "She keeps saying people don't realize how fragile happiness is." That sentence settled uncomfortably. "Has your dad said anything?" Claire asked. Evan shook his head. "He never does," he said. "He just carries it." Claire felt the weight of that. Later that night, when Daniel finally came inside, she found him sitting on the couch. The television was on, but muted. She sat beside him. "Can I ask you something?" she said. Daniel smiled faintly. "Sure." She chose her words carefully. "Do you ever feel like there are things from your past that still follow you?" she asked. His smile faded just a little. "Everyone has those," he said. "But some more than others," she replied. Daniel leaned back. He crossed his arms. "Why are you asking?" he said. Claire studied his face. She saw the man she loved, and the man who had learned to hide pain politely. "I just want us to be honest with each other," she said. Daniel nodded slowly. "I am honest," he said. "I just don't bring up things that don't matter anymore." Claire didn't argue, but something inside her disagreed. That weekend, the truth began pressing closer. Daniel received a call Saturday afternoon. He stepped outside to take it. Claire watched from the window. His posture changed. His voice stayed calm, but his shoulders stiffened. When he came back in, he looked tired. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. "Just family stuff." Evan appeared in the hallway. He looked at his father, then at Claire. Their eyes met briefly. A silent understanding passed between them. That night, Claire lay awake beside Daniel, listening to his breathing. She thought about Evan's words, about blame, about protection, and about secrets that were never meant to last forever. The next afternoon, Claire received an unexpected message. It was from Daniel's sister. She hadn't heard from her in months. The message was polite, too polite. It asked if they could talk, soon. Claire stared at her phone for a long moment. Then she felt it, that quiet certainty. The truth wasn't just approaching. It was already in motion, and Evan had seen it coming long before anyone else. Claire looked down the hallway toward Evan's room, then toward the door where Daniel would return any minute. She realized something then. The truth Evan carried wasn't just about the past. It was about a choice she would soon have to make. And once that choice arrived, there would be no turning back. Some conversations change you, not because of what's said,
but because of what can no longer be ignored. Claire agreed to meet Daniel's sister the following afternoon. They chose a quiet cafe on the edge of town, the kind of place where no one rushed you out the door. When Claire arrived, she saw her immediately. Rachel sat stiffly at a corner table, hands wrapped around a cup she hadn't touched. Her smile, when it came, felt practiced. "Thanks for coming," Rachel said. "Of course," Claire replied, sliding into the seat across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them carried history Claire had never lived. Rachel finally exhaled. "I don't know where to start," she said. Claire nodded. "Start wherever you need to." Rachel looked down at the table. "Daniel has always been the one who cleaned up messes," she said. "He learned that early." Claire listened. "When his first marriage began to fall apart," Rachel continued, "he decided it would be easier if everyone thought it was his fault." Claire felt her chest tighten. "Why would he do that?" she asked quietly. Rachel laughed softly. There was no humor in it. "Because the truth would have hurt too many people," she said. Claire thought of Evan, of his careful words. "What truth?" Claire asked. Rachel hesitated, then looked up. "His ex-wife didn't just leave because they grew apart," she said. "She left because of a choice she made, one that had consequences." Claire stayed silent. "She was involved with someone she worked with," Rachel said. "And when it ended badly, she blamed the stress, blamed the marriage." Claire felt a slow wave of anger. Not sharp, sad. "Daniel knew," Rachel added. "And he agreed to stay quiet." "Why?" Claire asked again. Rachel's voice softened. "Because there was a child involved," she said. "And Daniel didn't want Evan growing up hearing people talk."
Claire swallowed. "So everyone let him take the blame," she said. Rachel nodded. "It became easier over time," she said. "People got used to the story." Claire sat back slightly. Her heart ached. "Why tell me now?" she asked. Rachel looked uncomfortable. "Because things are changing," she said. "His ex is struggling financially, and she's starting to rewrite history." Claire felt a chill. "She's telling people Daniel was controlling," Rachel continued, "that he made her feel small, that leaving him was an act of survival." Claire clenched her jaw. "That's not true," Rachel said quickly. "You know him." Claire did know him. "That's why I'm scared," Rachel said. "If this version sticks, it could hurt him, and Evan." Claire nodded slowly. As Claire drove home, her thoughts raced. Everything Evan had said now made sense. The whispers, the timing. When she arrived, Evan was in the living room. He looked up as she entered. "Did you talk to her?" he asked. Claire paused, then nodded. He didn't smile. He didn't say anything. He simply looked relieved. "So I wasn't wrong," he said quietly. "No," Claire replied. "You weren't." Evan exhaled. "I knew something was off," he said. "I just didn't know how bad." That evening, Claire waited until Daniel came home. She could feel the weight of the truth pressing against her chest. They sat together on the couch. The house was quiet. "I met Rachel today," Claire said. Daniel stiffened. "What did she say?" he asked. Claire turned toward him. "She told me the truth," she said. "All of it." Daniel closed his eyes briefly. "I wanted to protect everyone," he said. "It seemed like the right thing." "It protected them," Claire said gently. "But it hurt you." Daniel looked at her. There was fear there, and relief. "I didn't want this life built on old wounds," he said. Claire took his hand. "It's not built on wounds," she said. "It's built on who you are." Tears filled his eyes. In the hallway, Evan listened, not to the words, but to the tone. For the first time in a long while, he heard honesty. But even as the truth finally surfaced, Claire knew something else. Truth, once spoken, has momentum. And the version Daniel's ex was spreading hadn't finished its work yet. Claire lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling,
wondering how far lies could travel once they were set free, and whether love alone would be enough to stop them. The truth doesn't always bring peace. Sometimes it brings a storm you can't step away from. Within days, Claire felt the shift. It started quietly. A canceled invitation, a delayed reply. Then it grew louder. Daniel came home one evening with a tight expression. He set his keys down more carefully than usual. "Something's going around," he said. Claire looked up from the couch. "About what?" "About me," he replied. "About us." Her chest tightened. "What are people saying?" Daniel hesitated.
"That I was difficult," he said. "That I pushed too hard. That I made my first marriage unbearable." Claire stood. "That's not true," she said. "I know," Daniel replied, "but not everyone does." Evan overheard them from the hallway. He stepped into the room. "They're using the story because it sounds believable," he said. "People like simple villains." Claire felt a surge of protectiveness. "We're not letting this define us," she said. But defining narratives had a way of spreading on their own. A school meeting was scheduled the following week. Evan's mother had requested it. Claire felt her stomach knot as they sat across from her in the office. She looked tired, but determined. "This isn't about the past," she said. "It's about Evan's emotional well-being." Daniel kept his voice calm. "I agree," he said. "That's always been my priority." Evan's mother glanced at Claire. "I think Evan feels confused," she said, "because he's hearing different versions of who his father is." Claire spoke gently. "Confusion comes from half-truths," she said. The room went quiet. Evan's mother stiffened. "We all made choices," she said, "and we all live with them." Claire watched Evan. He was steady, more steady than the adults. That evening, Evan spoke up. "I don't need anyone protecting me from the truth," he said. "I need honesty." The words hung in the air. Daniel looked at his son. "I should have trusted you sooner," he said. Evan nodded. "I know why you didn't." The meeting ended without resolution. But something had shifted. Evan had claimed his voice. In the weeks that followed, the whispers continued, but they lost some of their power. Claire noticed small changes. Friends who asked questions instead of making assumptions. Family members who reached out quietly. Truth moved slower than rumor, but it moved with weight. One evening, Claire found Evan sitting on the porch steps. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded. "I'm just thinking," he said, "about how adults think kids don't notice things." Claire smiled faintly. "You notice more than most," she said. Evan shrugged. "I just listen." Claire sat beside him. "You were brave," she said, "telling me the truth when it was uncomfortable." Evan looked at her. "I didn't want our family built on a lie," he said. Claire's heart swelled. Inside, Daniel watched them through the window. He looked lighter. Still tired, but lighter. That night, Daniel and Claire talked long after the house went quiet. "I don't regret protecting Evan," Daniel said, "but I regret teaching him that silence was strength." Claire squeezed his hand. "Strength can change shape," she said. The next morning brought an unexpected message. Daniel's ex had requested another meeting. This time she wanted to talk privately. No school, no mediator. Claire felt the familiar tightening in her chest. "Whatever happens," Daniel said, "we face it together." Claire nodded. She thought of Evan, of his quiet courage. She realized then that the storm wasn't just something to survive. It was something that would decide what kind of family they would become. And as they prepared for that conversation, Claire sensed one final truth waiting to be spoken, one that would either close this chapter or open a new one entirely. Some moments arrive quietly, but their weight changes everything. This was one of them. Claire and Daniel arrived at the small cafe, the same one where she had met Rachel weeks before. Evan waited outside, backpack slung over one shoulder, hands tucked in his pockets. He looked calm, older than his 13 years. Daniel gave him a quick nod. Evan returned it, silent but confident. Claire felt a surge of pride. Inside, Daniel's ex was already seated. She looked exhausted but determined. Claire could see the tension in her shoulders. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. Claire nodded politely. Daniel remained quiet, letting her speak first. I need to set things straight," she began, "about the past, about what really happened." Claire, Daniel, and Evan listened without interrupting. The words were slow at first, careful, but they carried a weight that finally made the room feel honest. "I made choices that hurt people," she admitted. "I blamed Daniel for things that weren't his fault, and I said things about him that weren't true." Claire felt her heart lighten. The truth she had been guarding, and the truth Evan had carried, was finally being spoken aloud. "I wanted to protect myself," Daniel's ex continued, "but in doing that, I hurt my son." Evan shifted slightly, but did not interrupt. He had been prepared for this. He had been waiting for honesty. "I want Evan to know the truth," she said finally, "and to know that his father loved him, even when others didn't understand." Evan looked at his father. Daniel reached over and gently squeezed his son's hand. "It's okay," Daniel said softly. "It's been okay all along." Tears filled Claire's eyes, but they were soft, warm, freeing. Evan took a deep breath. "I knew," he said quietly. "I knew you were protecting me, and I knew my dad was doing what he thought was right." His mother nodded. "Yes," she said. "I see that now." The room stayed quiet for a moment. Not the heavy kind of quiet, but the kind that feels like release. Claire realized then that the truth had finally settled. It hadn't erased the past, it hadn't erased the pain, but it had allowed them to breathe again. After the meeting, they walked outside together, Evan between Claire and Daniel. "You were brave," Claire whispered to him, "more than you realize." Evan smiled faintly. "I only wanted my family to be real," he said, "and now it is." Daniel pulled Claire's hand. "We couldn't have done this without him," he said, "without all of us being honest." The sunlight fell softly over them. Warm, gentle, promising. Claire looked at Daniel, then at Evan, and she felt it fully. The relief, the love, the quiet joy of a family choosing truth over fear. Evan looked up at his father. "Thanks for always being there," he said softly. Daniel knelt to meet him eye to eye. "I'll always be there," he said, "and I'll always listen." Claire squeezed their hands together, and in that moment, the past no longer felt heavy. The future felt lighter, braver, ready for them to face it together. Some truths are hard to hear, but some truths, once spoken, heal everything. And as they walked home, hand in hand, the world felt a little brighter, a little kinder, a little more theirs. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of understanding, trust, and a love that could finally breathe freely. They had survived the whispers. They had faced the past. And they had chosen each other, fully, honestly, bravely.